You're listening to Pop This, the podcast where two women talk about everything pop culture. Here are your hosts, Lisa Christiansen and Andrea Warner.
So I have a thing that happened over the weekend that surprised me.
What surprised you?
Yeah, and I should probably point out that you are listening to Pop This, but that voice you hear is not our Andrea Warner.
Isn't it?
Unless you're taking... Are you playing her today?
Wouldn't that be funny if I just pretended to be Andrea and then said many, many outrageous things?
Like like on a TV show where like on Bewitched where they just got rid of Darren and they just... onto a different Darren, but they don't even acknowledge it.
Yeah, or like
Roseanne.
mid-series Fresh Prince.
Yeah.
Right? I'm just like the new mom.
The new mom. You just start.
Don't ask any questions. I'm Andrea now.
This is probably not the way we should go.
No, okay.
Is not. This is our wonderful friend who you've been on the podcast, what, 4 times now? Is this
2 times.
No, isn't it?
Yeah, only 2 times.
Oh, well, wow.
Are you outraged?
Wow.
Because I am.
Yeah, I feel the outrage.
I'm being underused as a powerful local talent.
That is the voice of Hannah McGregor, obviously someone we need to hear from more. Mm-hmm. But you were going to be here anyways, but you're just going to be playing a larger role today. Because our Andrea is still quite under the weather.
I know.
Oh, my.
I know. Very sickly.
And as I like to point out to people, this is extraordinary because she has a way stronger work ethic than me.
She's a very dedicated, hardworking person, and I feel like as a result, when she gets sick, she gets wildly sick.
Yeah, it's out. She's out
Every once in a while, her body is like, and you're canceled for 2 weeks.
Yeah, like I can come in and just half-ass anything. Yeah. But she is not like that.
That's why I'm always a little bit sick and always a little bit lazy. But Andrea's, either working hard or hardly working, as they say.
Yes, exactly. So right now she is resting.
Okay.
She is recuperating.
Okay. So
she's taking the baths in a spa. No, she's not.
Oh, she's taking the waters. Oh, good. It's good for your lungs, I hear.
What you need is some dry air, darling.
Or wet air, one or the other. It either needs to be dry or wet.
We tried the leaching. It didn't seem to produce what we were hoping.
We got to balance your humor, so we either have to take bile out or put bile in. So I don't know.
We're trying them all, people. Yeah. We're trying them all. But thank you for being here, Hannah. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Do you think every time I say something off color, Andrea's going to get a little sort of shiver up her spine? Like, oh no, like somebody's just walked over her grave?
Yeah, I think that she's, think about this for a second, though. She has really entrusted you with a lot.
And
she's
I plan
not here
to not earn that trust.
Fun.
This is why I'm not invited back. This bad attitude.
Oh, this is why you'll be invited back by me. But as
what happened?
Yeah, we will. I don't know. Maybe we should say your accomplishments. You are the host and producer of Secret Feminist Agenda, which, please, you are an assistant professor at Simon Fraser University. So what I'm about to say, I recognize is might be judged by you harshly.
Okay, great. Do you want me to give it a grade after you're done?
My thought?
Yeah.
So I have, like many people, I'm kind of waiting at my side here. Like many people, have found the allure of our streaming universe has taken me away from books and reading.
Oh, yeah. Reading's hard and boring. Sorry,
It
I take it
can
back.
be.
It's great.
And I just, over the weekend, I needed to finish a novel. And I kind of surprised myself. I think I was like, it took about between 8 and 9 hours. I'm just going to guess. Not over the weekend. I'd already got a good way in. And I was surprised. I was surprised at how much time, and I don't know why, and I felt really bad about that I'd kind of forgot how much time. And I still like the image of getting into bed with a book.
Yeah.
But I also like looking at Instagram when I get into bed, too.
I am a publishing professional, that's a lie. A publishing professor, not professional at all. And so reading books, I'm also on a literary jury right now for a book prize. Like, reading books should be part of the texture of my everyday life. And just this morning, I filled out a survey that a couple of colleagues of mine are doing about how much people read. And one of the questions was, how many hours a week do you read for pleasure? And I really thought about it, and I think the answer is 3 to 5.
Wow.
Realistically,
Yeah.
for pleasure, because I
Yeah.
read for work a ton. I'm reading all of the stuff I assign my students to read.
Yeah.
Does it count when I'm reading all of these books for this jury that I'm on? Is that pleasure or is it a job? Hard to say. But like most of the time I get into bed at the end of the night and I also just want to look at Twitter until I'm so angry that it makes me pass out.
See, and I sometimes that can happen, but sometimes it's just so mindless. It's like clouds going by, right? You just, you're flicking through, and then all of a sudden you're like, well, I'm gonna go over to Pinterest and bore myself with my own things that keep coming back at me.
Just gonna look at haircuts.
Your
Think about
haircuts.
haircuts I could get.
And you're like, when did I look up Scandinavian cutlery? Because there are a lot of pictures suddenly.
Of so much skin. What is skin? You know what? I don't want to know what Scandinavian cutlery is. I want to picture it. I assume just many beautiful ergonomic spikes.
Well, there can be wood involved in the hands and the
Handles.
And sometimes, but mostly just very simple.
Yeah,
minimalist.
for sure,
But I don't know why I looked that up.
I do.
And one time my friend and I, we decided to do something that was very shocking. I said, I'm going to show
something
you.
shocking with Scandinavian cutlery.
Well, it comes in. I said, I'm going to let you see my Pinterest.
Oh, that's very intimate.
Isn't it?
Yes.
And then she said, I will let you see mine.
Oh, wow.
And, to be fair, none of it was particularly surprising. It was like, you craft a lot. There's a lot of crafts coming up in here, right? And I knew where she'd been on a vacation, so I could see that sort of. But, I was telling her that I have managed to look up probably 3,000 pictures of capsule wardrobes.
Oh. I mean, that's very aspirational. Pinterest is a good place to aspire.
But it's weird. How can I look at so many pictures of something that has so little? The whole idea of the capsule wardrobe is that you will be content with 10 items.
But it's also, it's not just, minimalism is itself an aspirational lifestyle that is often about buying things.
Yes.
Like Marie Kondo is selling stuff. It's about having the right kinds of things that look the right kind of way. So a capsule wardrobe often isn't about getting rid of a bunch of stuff. It's about, buying new things.
It's about that
will be part.
Perfect black turtleneck.
And once you find it, it will set you free.
But you must go through many. There are many knits. I'm not going to get the cashmere, that's just...
And think about it. Think about the different mode of attention between, being on Pinterest and getting to just look at things that would hypothetically make your life better versus, actually reading a book. Where you just, it's not not putting a book on your bedside table and taking a picture of it and being like, look, the idea of a book. It's like you have to actually read the whole thing.
You feel like just, to cap it all off, just take a picture of a selfie with you in the book.
Yeah.
Put that on Instagram.
Yeah.
So then you've covered
all
the bases.
And then you don't actually have to read it because there's a picture of you pretending to read it, and that's basically reality.
A nice little mug of tea next to you, got the duvet pulled up right
Maybe
under your
cat
chin.
curled up in your lap. Good social media content.
So in fact, I don't want to read. I just want to be perceived as a reader.
You know what? That is, as we say, a mood.
It sure is. And not too bad of a segue.
Great.
Into our conversation today, which is about Schitt's Creek.
Yeah. Speaking of wanting to be perceived as things. Ooh.
Yeah, no kidding,
Ooh,
hey?
Yeah.
So this is a CBC show that is just coming into its last season.
Yeah, sixth season? Did we establish that? I'm bad at counting.
Yes, sixth and final season.
Okay.
And I think this is being known as, and this is an expression that's not used a lot, a Canadian success story.
Yeah, it's not used a lot. And don't you love that way that when a Canadian property breaks out, all of a sudden everybody in Canada feels somehow personally responsible for it?
Yeah.
Like me, I raised Dan Levy by hand like a baby bird with milk-soaked pieces of bread to make him strong and thick of eyebrow.
I did more than that.
What?
I watched Dan Levy on MTV when he did his recaps of Laguna Beach.
You are responsible for this. You basically made Schitt's Creek.
I did. I supported him. I watched that show, and I mean, let's not even get into Catherine O'Hara and Eugene Levy.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
we
yeah,
have been supporting that as a nation.
We are behind Eugene Levy as a nation.
Yeah.
The number of times he has had a small part on an American film, and I have said, look, it's Eugene Levy. He's Canadian.
A lot of Americans only know him as the guy from the Masturbation Pie movie.
Every time you point out that Eugene Levy is Canadian, it adds a year to his life. He's gonna live forever.
I hope so. I hope so. I do. I only hope that our next big Canadian success story also elevates Martin Short to a place that we weren't even expecting.
I was about to say, can we just talk at length now about Get Over It, which is my favorite Martin Short movie?
See? There you go. We can just go into that. But I think Andrea will speak into my ear soon and say, focus.
Focus. Okay.
Focus. Am I right about that? Yeah. Got a nod
face.
there. Yeah. So
Wow.
we are going to talk about this CBC TV show, Canadian success story, that is just launching its final season. Here is a quick plot synopsis. When filthy rich video store magnate Johnny Rose and his family suddenly find themselves broke, they are forced to leave their pampered lives to regroup and rebuild their empire from within the rural city limits of their only remaining asset, Schitt's Creek, an armpit of a town they once bought as a joke. Now, you're out the guest, but you also have to work for this. Would you like to read the background on Schitt's Creek?
Love reading. Schitt's Creek is a Canadian television sitcom created by Dan and Eugene Levy that premiered on CBC television on January 13th, 2015. The series has won various accolades, including an ACT ACTRA. Ooh, that is one of those acronyms you say out loud. An ACTRA Award and 18 Canadian Screen Awards. It is the first Canadian comedy series to be nominated for a Critics' Choice Television Award for Best Comedy Series, and the first to win an MTV Movie and TV Award, winning Best Comedic Performance for Daniel Levy in 2019. It is also the first program from Pop TV to receive Primetime Emmy Award nominations, including Outstanding Comedy Series. The series' sixth and final season, consisting of 14 episodes, began airing on January 7th, 2020. That's a lot of awards.
It is a lot of awards. I wasn't aware.
That's amazing.
So, I mean, I knew it was doing well, but it's an interesting show, isn't it? Because I think, it just came to CBC. Mm-hmm. There it was. As we've mentioned, I mean, some of us knew who Dan Levy was. Yep. All of us knew who Eugene and Catherine O'Hara was. And
so
Chris
it had
Elliott.
star power.
It did have star power. But, we weren't sure where it was going to go.
No, and I feel like it was a slow burn.
It was a slow burn.
It really started as sort of like a cult hit. A small number of people were watching it because they love Eugene Levy and Catherine O'Hara, I think, for the most part. And I was one of those people who early on somebody said, watch this show. I watched the first couple of episodes and I was like, not for me. Right. No, thank you.
Yes.
And it took a couple of years for somebody to talk me into giving it a more concerted try.
And then once you did,
I had to give it enough time.
Yes.
People sold it to me the same way they have sold me a lot of what turned out to be my favorite sitcoms, which was you have to make it through the first season. Like, you've got to power through to see the arc that these characters are going on and where they move from first episode, from pilot to more fully realized versions of themselves.
Yes. And I think that one of the mistakes, because I've seen some people complain saying, but they're such awful people, which kind of makes me go, yes.
I mean, they are. That's the point.
Is entirely the point. They're like, well, I don't really want to watch it because they're not really nice people. I'm like, okay, it's been on, it's 7th season now. Mm-hmm. Have you ever heard of this thing called character development?
I've wondered a number of times about how these really great ensemble sitcoms often need some time to find their feet. Mm-hmm. And I'm not sure if it's because really the actors need time together and the show needs time to figure out what it's doing, or if it's just inherent in that the characters can't start fully fleshed out and likable because they need somewhere to go.
Yes, you're not. So anyone who is thinking about watching this, let's give you a heads up. In the first season, you won't like them.
You will not. I think actually Dan Levy has described the show as if the Kardashians lost their money.
Yeah.
So they're supposed to be shallow, unlikable characters because they need to go somewhere.
Yes.
And by the 6th season, the show is going to be full of characters you would die for.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, that's I mean, anyone who moves to a new city or starts a new life, whatever that is, there's going to be some adjustment.
Yep.
Especially if you are extremely wealthy and you go down to nothing. And I mean, I have to say, one of the really strong suits about where they live in this hotel.
Yes.
They did not...
Motel.
It's
a motel.
Yes, of course it is. Yes. They did not bother trying to like make this look, you know how sometimes people lose all their money and you're like, but you're doing okay. No, this is...
No, it's bleak.
It's bleak.
Yeah.
It is very bleak. I mean, you would be very... If you were on vacation and you ended up there, like, because, I don't know, this happened to me once, a rainstorm started so hard that you had to pull into the closest place.
Wow.
And it looked very much like this.
Okay.
And it was kind of a frightening night.
Yep.
Because there were sounds that I don't know what those were. Was someone trying to get in? Maybe. I don't know. But anyway, it had that look to it. And I think they really did a great job. And I don't know if they were really thinking about that or if the budget was low than the first few seasons. I don't know.
There's a lot of really interesting stuff about the show that does have to do with what a low budget they were working with. One of my favorite things about it is that Catherine O'Hara is genuinely dressed in designer clothes. They tried to make sure to dress her in stuff her character would actually wear, but they didn't have the budget to buy any of that stuff new. And so they were constantly hunting eBay, looking for stuff, and really diligent about not buying anything too contemporary because they wanted to be accurate that she wouldn't have anything bought in the last couple of years. So she's wearing real designer clothes that character would have, but that they had to, like, you know, shop in thrift stores to try to find that stuff.
Yeah.
So the show was for sure low budget. And also I think the show is playing with, like, I think it is in part a series about living through a recession, about economic loss, about, right, they haven't moved to some middle class town, they've moved to this really working class town where everything on the main street is closed and there's like 3 businesses and there's this sense that there's a lot of stagnation in the town and that like the town changes as a result of what they do in it, in addition to the town changing who they are.
Yes, exactly. And I mean, I love that. It's almost... I feel like you know that. And it would be silly for you to go, oh, I don't really like them. Because you know what's coming. You know they're going to be transformed by the kindness of these people. That's what's going to happen. And I like knowing that. Yeah. I like feeling that. I don't want to feel like there will be in season 4 like a murder or something like that, right?
They're going to pull a Friday Night Lights and all of a sudden have a like really shoehorned in murder mystery. I know what you did last summer storyline.
Yeah, I'm glad to know that isn't. And I think that's what's been really fascinating about listening to, because I think for Canadians, as much as we don't want to admit this, we're happy when we know Americans like the things we do. Let's just get that out of the way. So
when we have a massive national inferiority complex.
We do. So when it started taking off in the United States and everyone there, any sort of, I know everyone hates the word influencer, but I don't know what a better word would be. You know, like the people who talk, the people who write columns, the people who help other people to decide what they're going to do with their pop culture time. Started really liking it. And there was this sense that they kept saying, which I feel is so true, that it's very comforting. That it feeds you.
Yeah. So I really have this feeling like Schitt's Creek is set in a world that is not quite reality. And then that's been done deliberately, that they've created this little town where all of the stakes are low, all of the problems are small, they're real, but they're small, there's no real violence, there's no homophobia, which we can talk about, right? That's something Dan Levy did intentionally, is create this sort of world where characters don't have to deal with homophobia. My friend Lucia, upon watching the show for the first time, pointed out that there are no cops in Schitt's Creek.
Yeah.
Which really changes.
Well, would they be in Elmdale though? Maybe.
Yeah.
But you're right. No one's ever had to call one.
Cops are a staple of a small town drama, right?
Yeah.
But they're not there, and their absence sort of elides, you know, both all of the sort of political realities of police brutality, but also the very possibility of crime that you just don't have to deal with those realities. And by creating this lovely little bubble of a world that kind of looks like reality, but isn't really dealing on the terms of reality, it's just, you know, that whatever happens, like, everybody's going to be okay.
Yes.
Because everything is just a little bit cushioned.
Yes. And I also feel like one of the other successes of the show, which is another sitcom that I quite liked, and I've talked about here before, is called Gavin and Stacey, that James Corden created before he took off on his late night show. And it was just about two families coming together. Gavin's family and Stacey's family, as you can imagine. But one of the things I really liked was that every character got to be a character.
Yes.
There wasn't like the throwaway parents.
Yeah.
That are just kind of in the margins that show up every once in a while. I mean, you mentioned Friday Night Lights, but to be fair, that was really, unless it was, Coach and his wife. Coach Taylor. We didn't really get to know a lot about other people. I love fully formed everybody characters on this show. I love that Eugene Levy and Catherine O'Hara get as much time as we see the kids get.
Well, and the people who live in the town end up also getting to be fully fleshed out and fully realized. And characters who, in the first couple of episodes, feel like they're going to be throwaways, like Jocelyn Schitt, the mayor's wife, who just seems like kind of a joke of a character, like kind of this housewife with bad taste in interior decor and kind of some gross things to say about how her students think she's hot, ends up being this beautifully, richly, fully realized character with talents that are underestimated by the protagonists initially. And all of these, there's this amazing way that even while you are looking at the main characters and thinking like, oh, the Rose family are awful, you're also seeing the town through their eyes.
Yes.
So you're seeing this disgusting town full of one-dimensional characters that they just want to get out of immediately. And as they get to know the town, you also get to know the town. And it's like the characters sort of shed these surface layers and get deeper and more nuanced as it goes on, so that you like fall in love with the town alongside them.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that all the credit to Dan Levy for thinking this up. I mean, I don't want to say I underestimated you, buddy, but I didn't know what you were planning. And I mean, there's obviously, people would say, because we see a lot of the nepotism in this particular industry, but I mean, it's out there, and you accomplished this amazing thing with your dad. Yeah. And actually that warms me.
And his sister.
And what is his sister? She's?
Sarah Levy, who plays Twyla.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. So there you go.
It's the whole danged Levy family.
Yeah. And hey, why not?
Yeah.
Right?
Why not? They're all great.
And they're all great.
Yeah.
I mean, so yeah, why not do this? And if you're really good at it, then just keep doing it. So I have really enjoyed that. So who is your favorite character, would you say?
Oh, it is really hard. I was thinking about this last night. It's really hard because I love many of the characters in different ways. Moira has a very special place. That's Catherine O'Hara's character. Has a very special place in my heart. Her wigs have a very special place in my heart.
Yes.
I love David. I identify deeply with his social anxiety and his loneliness. I think it's really beautiful. But I think at the end of the day, in the depths of my being, I am a Stevie stan.
Oh, yeah. I
love Stevie so much. And I love the arc that she is given from being this really acerbic, alienated, disillusioned, standoffish person to so slowly, via the mentorship of Johnny Rose and the friendship of David and this sort of gradual, like, people trusting her and giving her the chance to do something and seeing that she can be more than how she's been treated, just slowly coming out of her shell. And the cabaret storyline in season 5, where she stars in this town production of Cabaret, I have watched that episode where she sings Maybe This Time like 50 times, and I cry every time.
Yeah,
I've
had a few moments where I've felt like crying, and oddly enough,
are you not a TV crier?
No, I am.
Okay,
I am. I haven't. I get just the water.
You just misty.
The vapors, as we were saying. So Alexis and the veterinarian Ted. Now, I liken this relationship to the one I really liked on Sex and the City with Charlotte and Harry.
Oh yeah.
There was something about
Yeah.
thinking you were better than somebody, that this wasn't the person for you. They were too stable or too ordinary, or something was wrong, or
Yeah.
I don't need to be, I don't deserve to be treated so nicely, or whatever it was. And there's something about him, and it's probably like you even said with all of the people in this town, that they're good people.
Yeah.
And these awful people come there and they can't enjoy it.
Yep.
Because what's the edge?
Yeah. Where's the catch? Where's the they're always looking for a trick or a way out. Like they're always just looking for an angle on everything. And the idea that somebody would just be good is baffling to them.
And kind and want the best from you.
Yep.
And so I really love watching how when she's working in the vet's office and has no idea about how you have to stay past an hour. And I think that's been quite fun, watching them have to learn how to bank or whatever ordinary things we do. I think it's been very sweet and funny.
Yeah.
And I actually didn't mind. Mutt, it's all right.
Yeah, I mean, Mutt is there to prove a point, which is that Alexis doesn't know what's good for her.
Yes, exactly.
Yet, and that she thinks that people who are stable are boring. And she also thinks that people who are kind are stupid.
Yeah. And it's funny because he plays this part. It's almost as if Dan Levy stole from other shows, kind of like... I was thinking he kind of had in John Corbett in Northern Exposure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like the hot, sexy DJ guy that's mysterious and weird, or like Luke in, in Gilmore Girls or something.
Absolutely. I mean, the show's full of these sort of sitcom staples.
Yes.
These characters who, again, you think you know them because they look like these archetypes. And so you look at them and you think, oh, yeah, I can dismiss you right away. You're the silly waitress. You're the housewife. You're the dumb hot jock. And then gradually every single one of them turns out to have these depths and dimensions. And it's a simple trick. I give you a character who you think is one-dimensional and they turn out to be complex. Like, on the surface, that's just storytelling, but it's hard to do. It's hard to execute successfully.
Yes. And I think there has to be so much joy working on this show.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like that. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'll find out.
I've watched a lot of videos. They're all friends. It's adorable.
Yes.
It's adorable.
Yes. I heard someone say this once about a band, and it was so stupid that I never actually occurred to me to think about it. They just said that, for a band to be able to attract really loyal fans, they have to be loyal to each other.
Yep.
And I was like, oh, that's so corny. Then I went, oh my gosh, that's so true. That's why U2 or the Red Hot Chili Peppers have this fan base.
Yep. You can feel it. You can feel that dynamic.
You can feel it. And I feel like, you could feel it on this show, that there is something under there. And also we have things like, Eugene Levy and Catherine O'Hara.
Well, so I was going to say, do you have a favorite character?
Gee, now that you said Stevie, I feel so attached to her. I really
special about Stevie.
Really do. I don't know. I kind of like Alexis quite a bit.
Me too. Have you listened to her song yet?
I saw her doing it with Kelly Clarkson on her show.
Oh my God. I have that song downloaded. It is like one of my pump up jams. I listen to it all the time.
And I think it's just because there's some of those moments too where you see how cold her mother is to her.
It is. Yeah. There is a supercut on YouTube of every time Alexis has made a passing reference to her past.
Yeah.
Where it's like, you try negotiating your way through a checkpoint wearing a burqa.
Yeah.
It's not all of these things.
Do you know how to talk to a Saudi prince when he might, and the way, when she was sick and she's trying to get closer to her mother and her mother just doesn't understand this dynamic. And you're like, yeah.
In that list of episodes that make me cry is the graduation day episode where Alexis has told her parents she doesn't want them there and then is regretting it and feeling sad. And then the curtain parts and there is her mom singing for her, which also makes me weep. And you know what the connecting factor is between those two episodes is actually the presence of Catherine O'Hara on the stage. Yeah. Like the fact that she is the one there witnessing these young women, even though she is flighty and silly and cold and distant, she sees these young women and knows what they are capable of. And that, for me, is part of the dynamic of the whole show, is that all of the performances of these young actors are possible because there is this absolute foundation of Eugene Levy and Catherine O'Hara,
Yes.
who are so, this is where I would swear, but I'm not going to because this is a clean show. They are so good at what they do.
Yeah.
They are so rock solid.
Yeah.
Like just beat for beat, incredible to watch
and
every episode.
Also, the ability to let everyone else shine too.
Yes.
And I mean, they are if they're not like royalty around the world, they should be.
They absolutely
But
should
they're
be.
they're comedy royalty to all of us in Canada
Yeah.
and just legends. But that ability they have to work in those scenes with these other people, and I think what you were just saying really all of a sudden clicked for me what it is about this show that is so wonderful, and I think that people pick up on. It is about being seen for who you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that scene, where Stevie's standing on stage and singing, and then the camera goes back to show you Moira watching her with tears in her eyes. And that moment where it's like, oh, you are crying because you are seeing this person fully and knowing how powerful it is for her to be seen. And that, I think part of why I love that musical theater storyline so much is that they hit the tone of amateur theatricals exactly right. The same way they hit the tone of the B grade, C grade movie that Moira makes. The same way they hit the tone of the open mic that Patrick sings at, which is that people are not that good at these things. They don't make them too good. They don't make it glossy and professional and Hollywood and shiny. They let it be a little raw and a little amateur and a little silly, but they also don't throw it out and dismiss it and say, look, play it for laughs, right?
Yes.
They show you the way that people making their art and doing their thing and trying their best and trying to be seen is real and raw, even when it's not perfect.
No, and it doesn't have to be. These are people that are happy where they live. They want to be there. But at the same time, they also want to have full lives where they get to be who they want to be. Yeah. As you said, why am I blanking?
I know, I love this list of characters here. It's very helpful for me.
It is. So Jocelyn.
Yes.
That she doesn't want to be anywhere else. Yep. She's so happy. She loves her husband. Makes me think of Marge Simpson and Homer, doesn't it?
It's just wild. It's wild that anybody would love Roland Schitt. And yet there they are. And
they love each other so much.
They really
do. And that is, that's all anybody wants in the whole world. And that's another thing that this show is saying, that these people have, it's cliche. And, that, they had it all, but did they have anything? That...
yeah, absolutely.
That kind of thing. But here they are able to see people who have what you really do want and value in your life.
Yeah.
Is that kind of acceptance.
Yeah.
And by coming there, they're already accepted. As you said, this is their vision of everybody else. We're not interested. And they're like, hey...
Yeah.
That's fine.
They're like, oh, you live here now.
Yeah.
Cool. Welcome.
Come on in. Come to our restaurant. Come do all the things.
That episode where Moira wants to get into the Jazza Gals. And Jocelyn, the way Jocelyn plays that scene of well, you have to audition because everybody has to audition, but we would love to have you, so come by anytime. Right? It's just you're not special.
Yeah.
You don't get a special status here. But you're included. You can be part of this thing.
When you come to your freeform bebop, whatever that was,
we're all gonna look really confused, and then we're still gonna let you in.
Yeah, and I just love the way she still. I love the way all of them still dress.
Oh, yes.
I know what you're saying. There obviously were lots of issues. It feels like maybe that was actually Dan Levy's wardrobe. I don't know, but I love the fact that they dress up every day.
Yeah.
I really do. I love that attention to that detail that Johnny puts a suit on every morning.
Yeah. Well, they dress in the clothes that they have.
Those are
true.
Just You're right. They don't have
the clothes that they have.
Yeah.
And you see them repeat articles of clothing.
Yeah.
Right? That they have built these characters, these wardrobes, and then that's it. Those are the wardrobes that they relocated with, and that's what they're going to wear. Because why would they throw out all of their nice clothes and buy other clothes? That's just what they've got. And it makes them look wildly and hilariously out of place.
Right, yes.
But that just becomes over time just part of their charm.
And I know we were just kind of getting to the issue that you said around that Dan Levy wanted to create the place without homophobia. Not just that, but with a town of extremely hot and open-minded people.
Yeah. All of the young people in Schitt's Creek are very hot and open-minded.
Yeah, I mean, it's like some kind of paradise. It really is.
Yep.
But I have to say, one of the scenes that surprised me, and I thought, why haven't I seen this on another show? Thank you for doing this, Schitt's Creek, is when he's babysitting that young girl and she gets her period on the bed.
Yeah.
And he's so great about it.
Yep.
Even though he is like so disgusted, really,
Yep.
right? Like, oh my God. Like, he cannot believe this on his linen. But he's so kind to her. And I thought, I've never seen that in a show.
There's an episode, I haven't gotten very far into season 6, but, so spoiler alert, if you're not watching season 6 yet, just fast forward 30 seconds. But the second episode of season 6, Daniel wets the bed, and Patrick has to, like, figure out how to make him feel, you know, not mortified and full of self-hatred. And it's just this way of being like, it's a thing that happens because we're imperfect people in human bodies, and embarrassing stuff happens to us sometimes, and we just have to move through it. And
Yeah.
it's that like that smallness and banality of storyline. Like, an embarrassing thing happened to me. How do I move through that? That's it. That's a whole episode.
Yeah, I know. And I know. And there's sort of a rhythm of the show, too. Like, you know, 1 or 2 episodes that are just kind of those throwaway, like maybe there's a potluck somewhere, and then all of a sudden there's an episode where like a big story event happens.
Yeah.
Like they meet someone or some event occurs. But I love that rhythm too.
Yeah. Yeah. So do you think that there's anything particularly Canadian about this show?
That is so hard for me.
It's so hard to put your finger on, right?
Because if maybe in the sense that it feels very familiar to me, like the whole everything
Yeah.
about it feels kind of right. Is that? I mean, even though you said that there is sort of an ideal, like it is a paradise, but it flows for me. And I sometimes wonder, is that because it's Canadian, made by Canadians in Canada?
I mean, there might be something there of like a particularly Canadian sense of humor. Something I do think that there is a particularly Canadian sense of humor that has to do with this kind of like banality and this kind of like dry humor, and everything is quite small and quite, you know, I think that has a kind of Canadian feel to it.
When I think about, I almost think about that daily, because I will hear that, you know, without getting into too much detail, just about every day American politics is a dumpster fire. Something
it's real
is
bad.
going on. Something. And it is just almost like, you know, like you're trying to shield your face like there's a fire going on, right? Like that dumpster fire. You're like, ah. And then all of a sudden...
scrolling through Twitter in bed.
Yes,
just with one hand over your face.
But then all of a sudden you'll stop on a story that Justin Trudeau bought the wrong donuts.
I loved Donut Gate so much.
And part of you like wants to get in there, go, okay, so he was a small town. Yeah. Okay, I see how this decision was made. And then you kind of, whoa, is that what we're doing today here?
It is.
And when you say that to me, then I watch Schitt's Creek, and I go, it feels.
Yeah. Somebody wrote an article a little while ago, I think in the Walrus. It was one of those like hot take think pieces that always make me so mad. But it was about how there's no great Canadian novels because great American novels are sweeping in scope and deal with global politics and the seat of power and how the world works. And Canadian novels are always really small and really close to home. And so they can be good novels, but there's no great Canadian novel because there's no novel that's about the human condition and politics in the contemporary world. And I reject that whole notion because that's just accepting this, like, that American literature's framing of the great novel is some sort of universal ideal. But I do think it's interesting that Canadian literature has a tendency to stay at the smaller level, at the intimate level, at the level of characters and their interactions. And they're often sort of set in specific towns and spaces, and things just play out in those spaces, and they can feel really claustrophobic. And there is something there that Schitt's Creek resonates with.
And you have pondered who has seen The Wind.
That's a question I ask myself every day.
You know, and you're like, one really important like theme in Canadian literature is having to go like stay at your grandparents' farm in Winnipeg
Yeah.
for a summer.
Yeah.
And in my mind, that's a legitimate story to start a whole novel with.
Absolutely. One time I had to go to a farm. One time it snowed a lot.
Yes.
One time the wind was too loud and it drove me mad.
Yeah, one time we had an American visiting, and now I sound like Kenneth in 30 Rock, and I didn't know what to think of him. And it's true. I think the show, and I think if people who are not Canadian are finding it very relaxing, which I do, but then, I probably thought The Beachcombers was, you can watch that and feel very like, well, there's, Nick's going to have to figure out what to do with those logs that came into town, or I don't even remember what Beachcombers' plot was or anything like that. But
probably logs related, though. That seems accurate.
It's probably something
probably
like
has something to do with resource management.
Who's going to win the Bonspiel this year?
But I also think there is, so last night, a friend of mine introduced me to a Irish sitcom comedy show I had never watched before called Father Ted.
I've seen that before.
And Father Ted is like, it's set on this island. There's a cast of like 6 characters, and it's all these really small interactions and these really
what's Coronation Street?
Right?
Right? I mean...
Yeah. So I do think that there is... we can point at a Canadianness, and then we can also just point at a genre of comedy that is about, setting the scale really small and keeping the stakes really low and just investing in these sort of workaday characters. And I think Parks and Rec does something really similar.
I think you're right.
And has a really similar feel to it.
It's a very kindness. There's almost sometimes I describe these as like sort of Canadian Wes Anderson.
Yeah.
Without the fantastic, but there is something kind of quirky.
Well, I think The Good Place is kind of similar. That even though it's set in like an actual fantastical setting, it's still functionally like a small town with a quirky cast of characters who all have to go through these weird interactions and have kind of been thrown together through forces outside of their power, which does lead to an important question, which is, this scenario of like weird small town, a bunch of people thrown together, makes it really easy to introduce a diverse cast.
Yes.
Which Schitt's Creek did not do.
They did not do. And that is a recent, quite a good piece that was written. I think we have the name if you want to check this out.
It's an article published in Refinery 29 last week called Why is Canadian TV So White?
Yeah. And it is a very good question and very fair.
Yeah. And it seems deeply unnecessary because so many, I think we have
one. I'm trying to think of all the diverse characters. There's 2 in Schitt's Creek, would I say? 2?
That I can think of, too.
Yes.
The real estate agent.
And the city councilor.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that next to how many, what was the ratio there? That's like 10%? If that?
Yeah, absolutely. And that is... It would just have been so easy to make.
Which is what you just brought up, The Good Place.
So many of the other characters, like you could have just easily done race blind casting across the board, and the show would have absolutely worked. There is nothing about it that requires its overwhelming whiteness. That's not an accurate representation of small town Canada. Like it's super unnecessary, and so that does. Why is that the case? Why is Canadian TV so white?
Yeah, it is a good question. And it's something, once, I think that, I guess the good news is that piece really resonated and was shared a lot and was thought a lot about. And so I do know that, it's a bunch of people will complain or not complain. The diversity people will get together and go, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah. It reminds me of another piece published maybe last year or the year before that was about the problem with Canadian humor writing that was looking at the Stephen Leacock Comedy Award and pointing out that it's almost always won by white people.
Yeah.
And why is it that humor written by people of color in Canada is not rewarded or validated? And that piece made the point that like a lot of our humor writing traditions comes out of this like sunshine sketches of a little town, like a very white literary tradition. And I wonder if there's something of that inheritance in our TV as well, that there is this sense of like when people watch a CBC show,
Yeah.
they know what they're looking for, and what they're looking for is a notion of Canadianness.
Yeah.
And for all of our claims to be a sort of multicultural country, representations of Canadianness tend to default to small town whiteness.
Yes, it's true. And I think they mentioned the one success, Kim's Convenience, but you can do more.
Yes.
A lot more. And Kim's Convenience has been as a successful show, very successful as well.
Yeah.
So, I think fair points.
You know what show is extremely diverse? The Great Canadian Baking Show.
Oh, yeah. And I love
And
that
it's
show.
also really good.
Yeah, and Dan Levy was the host on that. Wow, all roads lead back to Dan Levy.
Yeah, as well they should.
As well they should, yeah. And I mean, I'm very pleased to see how his career has taken off. And I know he's got some other projects coming out. And I just think, I hope all of his worlds that he creates are that accepting.
I want more of this. I want more of this, like, beautiful queer tenderness.
And when
as
you
an art
see
form.
it like that, can't other people just watch it and go, well, why would I care?
Yeah.
Why would I care?
It makes
How would
it
this
makes
affect me at all?
being mad about people being gay, it just positions it within the logic of the show as this sheer absurdity that, like, can you imagine anybody being so ridiculous that they would have a problem with somebody just being gay?
And it doesn't, and it actually, to have that that love triangle that Stevie and they were involved in, it didn't matter
Nope.
that it involved a male and a female at all. The dynamics of jealousy are exactly the same in that situation. And in fact, they added a little extra pepper to it, which is that this is right. He is splitting because we do offer up completely different things. And that's what makes
That storyline so
right
much.
so complicated.
So and then it happens again, right? When David and Patrick get together, and then Patrick's ex, who is a woman, comes to town, and like that's the dynamic there. You know, it's not ignoring the realities of queerness, right? It's recognizing that, like, Patrick has come out in this other town and he's left behind this relationship and he needs to grapple with what coming out means for his past relationships. Like, it's a real thing, much like the episode where Patrick comes out to his parents. Like, it's a real thing. He's nervous.
Yeah.
There's high stakes, but it's undergirded with this, like, basic level of kindness and this basic, fundamental, foundational, like, we're all on board with the fact that being queer is not just okay, but great.
Yes, exactly.
Like, it's great.
And also just I think that what was really interesting was it was introduced so soon in the show that Dan's character drinks red wine and white wine.
I love that analogy so much. It's just beautiful. And then sometimes rosé.
Sometimes rosé, yeah. And that was so quickly introduced. Like, I was actually kind of surprised when I saw him have that fling with Stevie the first time. I was like, did I misread show?
Yeah.
Was this not the same show that I thought? No, and then it became even better.
Yep.
It became much, much more interesting.
Yeah.
And why have we seen that before?
Like overt representations of like bisexuality and pansexuality on shows.
I feel like if it came up on something like a Melrose Place or some kind of teen drama, it was probably used for. I think actually, now that I'm saying it, the OC didn't what's her name have an affair with Olivia Wilde?
I haven't watched the OC.
Oh,
sorry.
They had a fling. There was a woman involved.
Eleanor is definitely bisexual on The Good Place.
Yes,
for sure.
Yeah, didn't she make note of that though?
I don't know. It isn't text for the first few seasons. But
yes, okay.
Definitely the case.
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that is becoming more and more of a thing.
Well, we've seen it in
TV.
Letterkenny too. That are the I don't know her name on it. His sister, she was with women, and it's just a.
Or like Sex Education.
Yes.
The second season just came out on Netflix, and the second season is like even gayer than the first.
Yeah.
The second season's like, this is fine. Everybody's bisexual or pansexual or asexual. Like, it's just the representation of queerness in mainstream television is expanding really rapidly in a really beautiful way.
I agree with you, and it's amazing, and it is so thrilling and exciting.
I think all the time, like, what would it have been like to be a teenager now?
Yeah.
Where you got to see not just, like, being straight is the default thing, and then you can be gay, but it will be hard.
Yeah.
But, like, look at these dozens of sexualities, and look at these dozens of body types, and look at these dozens of ways of being in the world. Like, it's just so beautiful to see stories told about people who are different.
There's a video going around, maybe you saw it, of a young boy. He's like about 12 or 13, and he's going off to a prom, and his dad sits him down to give him a little bit of a lecture about, because he's going to prom with this girl, and he's like, you're going to be, going out tonight with this girl, and if, if all of a sudden you want to have sex, and the boy's like, sex? Why would I have sex? Is there consent? And the dad's like, well, yeah, of course. What do you mean? And he goes, well, I don't know, Dad. Is someone else there? Like, what's going on? And he said, well, like normal sex. Dad, what does that mean? What is... Anyway, this is amazing. I have to send this to you because I haven't laughed as hard and been so excited at the same time.
Great.
Of this new future world we're in, which Schitt's Creek has done an extremely good job of being a representation of, with some tweaks it could have done other things. But we are in the...
Yeah, well, it's part of the conversation.
It's part of a conversation.
Yeah.
So as we like to do when we take on a show is we ask, does this pop?
Oh, pops so hard? What's the adverb to attach to popping?
High?
Pops high, pops high, pops hard.
It's popping.
Yeah, sure
It's
is.
popping like a popcorn popper.
I love the show so much.
I agree. I absolutely 100% love this show. So we like to leave with another thing that we enjoyed that's brought us a lot of happiness. Take it away.
I'm going to tell you about my new favorite podcast.
Oh, okay.
Which is called The Sandy and Nora Show. Have you listened to this?
No, I have not.
The Sandy and Nora Show is a politics podcast hosted by Sandy Hudson and Nora Laredo. They're both activists and organizers and writers, and it's a Canadian politics podcast. It is a Canadian politics podcast rooted in feminism, leftist organizing principles, and smart critical readings of what's going on in the news and in politics. The most recent episode was called ACAB, i.e. All Cops Are Bastards. So it is a distinctly left-wing politics show. The Sandy and Nora Show.
Sandy and Nora Show, okay.
And what I love about it, my favorite thing about it is that it is always rooted in organizing. So things you can do, concrete ways that you can actually address problems and issues. And so I leave every episode feeling both better informed about what's going on in my country in particular, and also like less powerless and overwhelmed, more like I can do a thing.
Excellent. Well, mine is a little bit related, but you might not know I'm a big metal fan.
I didn't know.
Yeah, and there's been an album that I've been listening to a lot of, and it's a particular, how metal has so many subgenres, right? Mm-hmm. Just saying metal is nothing. So there is a subgenre of metal called death metal.
Oh, yeah.
Which is not black metal, death metal. And there is a band called Cattle Decapitation. And their latest album that just came out, I know, it came out in November.
Good name.
It is, isn't it?
Yeah.
Their album that just came out in November is called Death Atlas, and it is all about climate change.
Oh, wow.
It is environmentalism. It is about getting organized, making some changes, what's going on in the world. And if this album isn't a call to action for you, well, I don't know how I can help you. Maybe Sandy and Nora can.
Just choose your flavor of activism.
Yes, choose your flavor of activism. And I think this is a brilliant album. I know it's a big ask because it's not an entry level kind of place. Yeah. I'm not asking you, pick up Joni Mitchell's Blue, you'll learn a few things.
Did you just call Joni Mitchell entry level?
No, I meant I guess I did. Yeah, would you think of
that's fine. Throw down.
No, it's not. It's.
I know what you mean. Like, metal is one of those things where if you don't already think of yourself as a metal listener, you might not go like, well, I'll pull that up on Spotify. But you know what? Why not?
I feel like putting on Blue, it would be the rare person that would go, well, I don't like this.
Well, this is off-putting.
Yes.
This gentle acoustic melody.
What is she talking about? These stories of love and sadness. I don't relate to any of this as a woman. I find... It's not challenging. Please don't come at me, Joni Mitchell fans.
Everybody, you heard it here first. Lisa thinks that Joni Mitchell is basic.
Wow. Wow, did I really?
No, I'm putting words in your mouth to try to get people to turn on you on Twitter because I am badly behaved.
Yes, well.
As established.
Yes.
This album sounds great, and I will not listen to it.
I know
I was about
you
to say,
won't.
like,
No,
I'll just pull it up on Spotify, but that was a lie.
No, it's a lie. It's okay, and I'm comfortable with that, but there might be one person listening.
I really hope. I hope there's 5.
Yeah, I hope there's 5.
Yeah.
And I hope also the Joni Mitchell fans are okay with that. So,
They're fun.
Hannah, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
For being Andrea's stand-in.
How did I do?
You
Was I Andrea-like?
You did a fantastic
Great,
job.
thanks.
Yes. And people can find you where?
On Twitter at HKP McGregor.
Okay, and Secret Feminist Agenda.
Yeah, it's at secretfeministagenda.com or on all of the other podcasting places.
And you're also, like us, you tend to turn up at events, just like with Lindy West.
Turn up at events. I did interview Lindy West.
Yes, you did.
Whenever you see Lindy West, just look for me. I might be there.
Ooh.
Probably not.
Probably not. Don't be afraid, Lindy. It's okay. She didn't mean
Not
she's going to follow
you.
And you can find us on Spotify, iTunes. You can find us at all the proper places where you find podcasts. And if you would like to rate us with 5 stars, because that's what we like, 5 stars.
That's what you deserve.
That's what we deserve.
Yeah.
And we are produced by Andrea Gin at the Vancouver Public Library, where we record. Thanks for being here.